listening to another great podcast in the MyMac Podcasting Network.
Yeah! It's the Mac to the Future podcast number 722. Tar if feathering, and that will make so much more sense later, or possibly not. That's just kind of the way this all works. I do not have Gaz this week, even though it said Guy and Gaz in that thing. I just made that today, and obviously looking at it, it still needs work. It still needs work. However, I am here. Let's see, where is it? There I am, and there is my lower third logo. So yay for lower third logos. But I am not here by myself. I am not. I also have Mr. Dave Ginsburg. Dave, how are you doing today, sir?
Great. This is thrilled to be back here on MyMac podcast here, man.
Yeah, and your video is slowing up a little bit. So, but nope, now it's back to normal again. I have no idea. We were basically before we got started. We were desperately trying to adjust the audio so that I couldn't hear myself, but at the same time hear Dave, and then still recorded in GarageBand. And I am proud to say we got it all working. No, we did not get it all working. It is not working, Dave. So yeah, so it's kind of a typical thing with the MyMac.com podcast. Yeah, so. We're just trying a little experiment here. Now, Gaz isn't here this week because he's on walkies with his lovely wife, and so he can't be here. Dave graciously, throwing caution to the wind, decided that he would come on the show and do the MyMac podcast with me. And I figured, you know what, Dave, in for a penny, in for a pound. I would also broadcast this regardless of the consequences over there on Facebook's. And honestly, this could just go spectacularly wrong before it is all said and done. We don't really know. Now, even though we're kind of doing this, now people who are longtime listeners to the MyMac podcast, you know that after each one of these segments, we take a little break and we put it in an ad and we've got the music and all the rest of that. Well, we won't be doing that live because I'm not set up to do that. Eventually I will work it out so that I've got some of the other ads for other podcasts in the MyMac podcasting network, where there'll be like a little opening music and a little closing music, and then the ad in between with probably a graphic to the show or something like that'll splash up on the screen, and I'll make it so that I can turn off Gaz and my microphones or whoever it is that I have on with me, so that at the same time you're hearing about all these other wonderful podcasts that are on the MyMac.com podcasting network. You won't also have to listen to the inane babbling of Gaz and myself, well, mostly me, while we're waiting for the ad to end. But the whole point is, number one, to see if I can do this live, and I'm using Mimo Live, Mimo Live.
Yep.
We're not using Skype or Discord or anything like that to get David on. We're actually using a service that's built into Mimo Live, and that's from Boinks Software. I'll give them a plug, boinks.tv.com. It's this thing that they have. Let me bring it up here on the screen, or you won't be able to see it, but I'll be able to see it. It's called Mimo Calls, and this goes through Mimo's own servers, and it's really easy to use. I mean, basically, I just sent you a link. You didn't have to do any kind of setup. It only works with Chrome though, which I thought was kind of interesting. But yeah, and basically you had to give Chrome access to your camera and microphone for it to work.
Right. Yeah, I did. Yeah,
and then
it's Chrome only because I use Firefox as default, and I couldn't get in.
Yeah, but it does work.
It does.
Yeah, we're talking, and there's not a whole lot in the way of delay. I know that with Skype there has been issues in the past when Gaz and I have tried to do stuff like this, and it hasn't really worked that well. But, the one thing I did want to try, because you and I were kind of working on this the other night, just kind of screwing around with it. And I was curious to see if I could use another Mimo call session to bring in like a third person or a fourth person or, something along those lines. And I'm set up for it, but I don't have another person that I'm going to bring in. And I'm not going to do it now. Okay.
Right. We can't do it now.
Yeah. Please don't volunteer right now. Everybody who's watching this live, don't volunteer because we're not going to do it right now. But yes, at some point in the future, maybe next week when things get a little less crazy, we'll see if we can get like 3 or 4 people on at the same time, because this program, Mimo Live, almost sounded more like a Boinks TV Mimo Live commercial than the MyMac podcast. Yeah. But this program does allow me to have 4, 5, 6 different video feeds all going at the same time and being broadcast. And I guess it's really the only real limitation would be bandwidth, either on the person that I'm talking to or, I don't know, somebody else. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it would work, because I think all of us as podcasters, we're trying to experiment with different things because we're just tired of Skype. It just doesn't.
And Discord and Wire.
Discord has got its place, but I don't think. I mean, a lot of podcasters that we know are using it now, and it's been so. But the other one I think to look at too would be Zoom, because I use that all the time too. So there's a couple other good alternatives out there right now. So. But this is good too, We played the other night, and I was like, "Wow, this thing is pretty impressive."
And the one thing that we weren't able to figure out before we started to record was how I could, hear Dave, not hear myself, and at the same time record everything onto GarageBand. And I'm sure that there is an easy way to do that. I just couldn't figure it out in the short amount of time that we had. And I didn't want to spend all day screwing around with the audio. So what I'll do is, assuming that we don't have any issues with the recording of this show locally for me, I'll take that local file, strip out the audio, and then use that for the mymac.com podcast. Yeah. Now, to getting away, pushing all that aside, push it away. It's all done now. This week is actually going to be kind of cool, Dave, because there is an Apple event.
Yeah, I'm all psyched for it. I got a podcast coming up with Mike Potter, and for Mac Eyes Only, a reaction type episode. We'll miss Gaz and all that.
Is that why you're wearing the Mac stock hat, or?
Yeah, well, no, you were wearing a hat. I said, you know what? I'm going to get a hat. We got to stay consistent. Both have hats on,
and this is actually from last year. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, you should be able to see that. Macstock 2017. I did get one for this year. I have 2 Macstock hats now.
Yeah, this one's this year.
Because I'm so special.
You are.
I wonder if Mike will do it in some different colors for next year. I don't know how many hats he actually sold.
I'm sure he did okay.
Yeah. I certainly bought one. And for people who don't know what we're talking about, you've already missed it. And I've talked about it incessantly on this show, on the build up to it. It was the Macstock Expo and Conference for 2018 that was held on July 21st and 22nd, I think. Yes. Something like that. In Woodstock, Illinois. There is going to be a Macstock 2019. So if you keep an eye on Macstock Conference and Expo.com, as we get closer to that event that is still like 10 months away, then you'll be able to get more information on that. So there's this Apple event that I'm finally working my way back around to talking about. Throw
you off on a tangent there.
Isn't that weird? It's how often have you ever heard me go off on a tangent? Ever?
Never.
I know. So Apple event. Of course, we're gonna see new iPhones. I think that's pretty much a given. Yeah. Maybe a new watch. Certainly, we'll see a new version of iOS. At least they'll talk about the new version of iOS. They typically don't really release it until like just before, whenever the phones are actually going to be released physically. release, not on the announcement day, but when they actually release the phones. Just prior to that is when they also put out the updates to iOS. And honestly, and because there's always, this time of year, whether it's September, early October, when they do these announcements, you've got, of course, the new phones. There's potentially, probably pretty much a given that there's going to be a new watch. The other thing that I'm kind of looking forward to seeing is if they're actually going to release a couple of new Macs.
Yeah. I don't think this is definitely not going to be a Mac event. And generally in September, they generally don't.
Well, not necessarily a Mac event, but they could announce one.
It's possible. I mean, there was the rumor about the Mac Mini Pro. I think that it was a rumor, honestly.
Yeah. Well, and there's really no reason why they couldn't do that. I mean, Thunderbolt is certainly fast enough to handle the bandwidth. It's really just a question of beefing up the Mac Mini to do some of the things that I guess pros want to do.
Yeah,
so
that's
the nice thing about doing it, the nice thing with doing it with the Mac Mini is you're still keeping the small form factor that they kind of established with the 2013 Mac Pro. But the difference is nobody supported the protocols for external cards and all the rest of that the 2013 Mac Pro was, supposed to utilize, which is why they had it in such a small form factor. But now with Thunderbolt 3, and there's already released, card cages and all the rest of that, Thunderbolt 3 has all the bandwidth you need to do something like that. So you still just have like a little tiny box on your desk and can have, card cages with all the other stuff that you want to have someplace else.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, but the thing is, they haven't touched the Mac Mini in 4 years. I mean, they got to do something. I mean, either discontinue it or come out with a new one.
Something.
I'm at that point,
And before the end of the year, I mean, thanks for the iMac Pro, because everybody wants to spend $5,000 on a monitor that has a computer attached to it, as compared to a computer with a monitor attached to it.
Right.
But yeah, the Mac Mini needs help, and frankly, I would love to see like a mid-range desktop machine, though I doubt we'll ever see it.
Yeah. I doubt it. Oh yeah. By the way, I got to make sure I say this. A shout out is it's your birthday today, so happy birthday, guy.
Thank you. With everything that we've been talking about now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like, I didn't remember it was my birthday, because I've been getting birthday wishes on Facebook all day, and of course my family begrudgingly said, "Yeah, okay, happy birthday."
So I get to hang out with you on your birthday. I'm honored.
Thank you. Well, I'm just glad you were able to come on.
Yeah, no, I love doing this.
Yeah, so we couldn't do it yesterday. I had a lot of stuff going on yesterday, so we couldn't do the show yesterday. So here we are on my birthday, recording them. Oh yeah, Bob Wood says happy birthday. So does Steve Donato and Adam, and I'm sure that the comment section is going to be filled to the brim with people saying happy birthday. But yeah, so. God, there was something I was going to go say along with that, and it just kind of went out of my head.
Announcements, the Mac Mini. It's all the topics. I mean, there's going to be so much. I mean, this is a big announcement. It really is, and I think a lot of what's going to get discussed is going to be really focused on iPhone and iPad. I mean, I don't know about iPad. It's going to be really a heavy iPhone event. I really think.
Yeah, well, iPhone iOS kind of event, which is
iOS 12
what we expected.
iOS 12 is going to get released, that's for sure. And I wouldn't be surprised if Mojave is going to go Golden Master, and that'll get released very shortly after this event as well.
Which is kind of why I'm kind of hoping that there'll be either some Mac announcements on Wednesday. It would actually.
Oh, I always hope, but it's just the trend. The trend for this announcement in the fall has always been focused
iOS,
iPhone. Yep.
Yeah, and the fact that they're talking about possibly 3 different phones. Including a megalith 6.5 inch that really should be like on the moon in 2001: A Space Odyssey kind of thing.
The latest rumor, actually, I read today on Mac Rumors is now they're turning back and saying that it's not going to be called the iPhone X or the iPhone 10s Max, it's going to go back to the Plus. So that's why you can't trust these rumor sites. Guys and gals, you just can't.
So, yeah, essentially, we will find out at
Wednesday. That's when you'll
Wednesday
find out.
That's at 10 a.m. California time.
Yes.
So mark your calendars for whatever time Wednesday California time is at 10 a.m. is for you. But speaking of drilling, even though we weren't speaking of drilling, I went to the dentist on Wednesday.
Oh boy. You're going to talk about that
very, very quickly. Right. So I've been dealing with this thing with my teeth for like a year now. I had 2 back molars on my lower right side shatter. And so now I'm finally getting to the point where something is actually going to be done about it. And within a couple of weeks, I'll have implants. But this last Wednesday, he had to make the holes in my jaw in order to put the implants in. So anyway.
Don't go to details.
No, I won't. But I feel like kind of a reverse Jed Clampett. You know, instead of drilling for oil and getting rich. They're drilling into my jaw and my dentist is getting rich.
Yes, he is.
And that's really all I got. Should we go on over to the mymac.com recent articles?
Yes, we should.
Okay. Oh, wait, hold on. John Kreisler says, happy anniversary of my 21st birthday. Yeah, well, that was only like 5 years ago. So, yeah. Yeah, I still get carded every single time I go into a bar and ask for an alcoholic beverage. I do. That's a thing.
That's right.
Yeah. So, TechFan 363 crickets. I love this. Tim could not do a TechFan because he had like a Godzilla-sized cricket in his house making all kinds of noise. And
that'd been an interesting podcast.
The way David was describing it, I don't know if you've listened to this one yet. Dave was basically saying that anytime Tim would go to look for the cricket would stop making noise, so he couldn't find him. But the moment he would go back to his desk and sit down and they would get ready to record, so yeah, it wasn't going to work. So Tim has suffered a house invasion of the Jiminy kind. So David talks solo about old Nokia phones and the new Microsoft Surface Go. So go on over, get TechFan 363 and listen. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, listen. I'll let you finish that one.
I'm done. You got the next one.
God, second time doing this, I forget this. The Essential Apple Podcast, number 103. Take Control with Joe Kiesel. Joe's a great guy. This week he was joined by co-host Nick Riley and the guest Joe Kiesel of the Take Control books fame. As ever, we try to avoid all the pre-12 September event rumors and speculate. And
they spelled rumors wrong.
That's an English thing.
Yeah.
Speculate and focus on things that happened this week, including an Apple autonomous test car getting rear-ended. Oh, whoops. Apple buying an AR glasses lens company, and women demanding that the fitness apps and products have a pregnancy mode. That should be a good.
How the hell does that even work? How would the phone know, or how would these apps know if
maybe
whether you were pregnant or not? You know, either okay. You know, I can't even go there. I don't even know how to get there. Okay. So the next one is Storyteller 5 shoulder Storyteller 5 shoulder camera compact bag. This is a review by Nam Segri.
This is Nam Segri. I disapprove of this message.
I don't blame you one bit, Sam. Not one bit. The Storyteller 5 is a compact camera case that features many of the well-designed characteristics found in Think Tank's larger high-end packs. Photographers won't be able to carry all the equipment they need for a complicated shoot with this small pack, so it's perfect for casual travel and hardy for walk-around street shooting. Go on over, check out that review by Sam Negri.
All right, and then the next show is Geekiest Show Ever, and that was episode 292, Gather Around the Photo Book. We start off having Mike and Lisa laminate the end of the summer, and then move on to laminating the end of Apple print
lamenting.
Lamenting? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Bad English here.
Yeah, laminating is like, okay, we're going to take summer and cover it in plastic.
See, when I don't know we're reading this, I have to read through this stuff here. So Mike and Elisa lamented the end of the summer. Then they moved on to lamenting the end of Apple printing service. They discussed some possible alternatives and experiences with other services. Yes, the photo service is gone.
Oh, I'm sorry. Who was on that podcast?
It was Mike and Elisa. I guess
You say Pacelli and I say Pacelli.
I forgot to do that. I'm so
Gotta do
sorry.
that.
I should be ashamed of myself.
Yeah.
All right. The last one for this week is Let's Talk Apple number 60. And I really wanted to be on the show, but I couldn't, for August of 2018. Joining Bart this month was Adam Christensen from the MacCast, Mark Chappell from the Essential Apple Podcast, and Allison Sheridan from the NosillaCast. Because it's the so-called silly season, in news, the show has a bit of an unusual format, which basically happens every time I'm on that show. The show starts off with the usual follow-ups, a few notable numbers, and then some Apple HR news. The first main story is not a single story, but a medley of medium-sized stories. The second one is Apple's censorship of conspiracy theorist Alex Jones and his InfoWar publication. And the final story is the end of Back to MyMac, which I think we talked about. Was it you and me that talked about that? Okay. The show finishes with a quick roundup of some other smaller stories that made the news in August. Yeah. Actually, I think we're going to talk about the whole InfoWars thing in the next section, so we won't go into that right now. Dave, we're about to end this segment, so if people wanted to get a hold of you, how would they do that?
Well, they can listen to me on In Touch with iOS at intouchwithios.com, and I'm also available on Twitter at DaveG65.
Yeah, and I'll show that right there. Hooray! If you want to get a hold of Gaz, you can send him an email, gaz@mymac.com. You can also reach him on the Twitters, where he is Gazmaz. And of course, he is the usual host or host of the mymac.com podcast. If you'd like to get a hold of me, it's ever so simple. All you have to do is send an email to guy@mymac.com, probably, or send me a tweet on the Twitters, where my handle there is MacPettit. And if you would like to write, because after this wonderful rendition of all the stories that we had on the mymac.com website, why wouldn't you want to write for mymac.com? Well, if you want to, all you have to do is get a hold of Mr. John Nemo, and his email address is nemo@mymac.com. You can also reach us if you want to call the show. You can call the show 703-436-9501 over there on the Skypes. One or plus one outside of the United States, unless you do it directly from the Skype app, in which case it's just 703-436-9501. Hey, hey, hey. Dave, would you please get us out of this segment?
All right, let's go on to this first break.
Oh, you don't remember? You don't remember how to the whole?
Should have in the notes.
Well, yeah, but it's a given. It's kind of a given. So everyone, please.
Only my second time. All right, okay, now I remember.
All right.
Okay, everybody, please stand by.
To stand by.
Stand by.
And
we'll
be
back.
Exactly. It's as easy as falling off a bicycle.
It is.
What?
It's been a while.
Okay, so that will be the break note for the first section. Because typically what I do when I'm recording this in GarageBand, Dave, and I'm giving away all my trade secrets here, though I guess it's not really a trade secret. When Gaz and I end a break, I will typically stop recording in GarageBand and then do a save, and we like to refer to that as stop and save. I say it like that every single time because I'm weird.
Smart idea.
But because we're recording this in Mimo, and we're live on the Books of Face, we really can't do that. But actually, before we get back to the show, let's take a look at some of the comments here. Is there?
Yes, Steve Donato says, "Where's Dave's headphones?" Well,
Oh, you're wearing
I'm
like
wearing earbuds.
yeah. I'm the one that's
I keep
where-
them conspicuous.
one of the big sweaty things here on top of my head. And I really should. You know what? You're right. I should get some smaller earbuds so I don't have this big thing on my head all the time. Because once I set the audio levels,
Here, if this makes Steve happy, I got some headphones.
okay, you don't have to wear them now.
No,
You know, just
I know. I'm just making him happy.
let's see what else. John wants to know if there's an electronic pregnancy test with Bluetooth. I'm gonna say no. There's not. And until this could go in so many different bad directions. Until women get a USB port, and I'm not going anywhere beyond that right there.
I think we should move on.
Yeah, we're gonna move on from there. Yeah. See, this is why I so very, very carefully edit the after show comments that Cass and I talk about, because believe it or not, what I just said wasn't nearly as bad as some of the other stuff that I've said, and that really wasn't all that great of a comment. Okay, are we still? Have we frozen? We may have just frozen.
No, I'm good.
No, I don't mean. I mean on Facebook. Are we still going on Facebook?
We're still going on Mimo.
I'm gonna hold on before we start again. Go here. Come on. There we go. All right. No, we're still good. All right. It looked to me like we'd frozen.
Nope. Adam in the chat room said, "Nope, still see you live."
Okay. And basically, folks, I will also edit this, once I render it and do a few other things. I'll post it on YouTube and then post the link on YouTube back into Mac to the Future. I basically won't do it for, kind of like what I do with Mac to the Future, where I don't post it on my own timeline. I just basically post the YouTube link over in Mac to the Future of the edited Mac to the Future Go livecast.
Go! Makes sense.
Okay, you ready to go to the next part?
Let's do it.
You guys ready for us? Like it matters. We're going anyway. Alrighty. So let me start off with this. And welcome back to the MyMac.com podcast. Dave is still here, probably against his better judgment, based on some of the comments that I just made while we were in our break. Yeah. It was not a good comment. Got a couple things real quick to talk about here. We already talked about the upcoming Apple event, so there's no reason to harp on that anymore.
No.
The EU clears Apple's acquisition of Shazam. Did you know that Apple had bought Shazam?
I did. Yes, there was I think it's almost a year ago now. So
Yeah.
that's how long it took to get the EU to finally approve it.
Yeah, and despite concerns by member nations, the EU has cleared Apple's purchase of the UK-based, I didn't realize that was UK-based, Shazam app. Some members felt it would give Apple information about some of their rivals, that I guess they were concerned about that. Frankly, at this point, since there's been, really, there's been a steady decline, I think, in the purchase of music online and more along the lines of people are just streaming. So they're getting, they're getting subscriptions to Apple Music or Spotify or Google Music or, whatever your particular streaming service of choice that you prefer is.
Right.
And, it's weird. I've got like a whole huge collection of CDs and albums. I actually have music for people that are like under the age of 30. You may not understand this. So, if I go over your head, let me know.
Don't talk about 8-tracks.
Oh yeah, 8-tracks. Oh, I wasn't even gonna. How about quad? Did you ever see quad 8-tracks?
Reel to reel.
Yeah, reel to reel. There used to be these things. They were made out of plastic and vinyl. And you would take these things, they were like about this big, they would spin at 33 1/3 RPM, so revolutions per minute. And you would take this pointy little thing and stick it on it, and music would come out of these speakers. Crazy. I know, it's nuts. But that's the way we used to listen to music. And then in the 70s, Dave, there in the 70s, I had a really good time. I used to sit there in my car and I had this thing. It was called an 8-track.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it would it was.
Wait, I can't rewind it. I got to go to track 2.
It was mostly created to gum itself up after about 10 plays, and then you couldn't.
People leave them in their cars. They're all melted.
I know. And then you would hear like this weird sound. You'd put the 8-track in, and you'd be kind of jamming, and all of a sudden you hear this beep beep, this like weird sound coming from it, and you'd go to pull the tape out, and there would still be tape.
The tape
that was coming out of the player. I had a buddy. He had it was a 72 Mustang Mach 1, really beautiful car, and he had he had a quadraphonic 8-track player. It could also play the stereo 8-tracks, but
I love the terminology from the 70s.
That was it. No, that was a real thing. It was so you had basically on an 8-track player, you had 4 stereo tracks, hence the name 8-tracks. So you would, as you were listening, it would kind of jump from track 1 stereo to track 2 stereo to track 3 stereo and so on and so forth. But what the quad 8-track would do, it would take tracks 1 and 3 and play them at the same time, and tracks 2 and 4 and play those at the same time, which really made for a very interesting time if you didn't hit the stereo button on your quad player and just put in an 8-track player, a regular 8-track tape. So you would hear like 2 different songs playing at the same time. And you're like, what is it? So he had, was probably one of the best live albums ever. Led Zeppelin, Song Remains the Same. Fantastic live album. But he had that on a quad 8-track tape. And he had to keep buying it because the player kept eating the tape. And he would go out and buy another one just because. But it sounded so good. And because he had really good speakers, and he had an equalizer in the car, and he had actually written down the settings, where to stick each one of the little pins on the equalizer for the best settings, in his opinion, for each one of the songs on Led Zeppelin's Song Remains the Same on that 8-track. So we were driving down the road. He's in a Mustang, so we're doing like, a gazillion miles an hour. Yeah. And all of a sudden one song ends. He's like, oh, hold on a second. I got to change all the equalizer settings. And I'm just watching cars flying at us all over the place. But yeah, it sounded really good. But people, obviously, that didn't last for very long. Not very many people bought 8-tracks, and even fewer people bought quad 8-tracks.
It died.
Yeah, and then cassettes were a thing for a while, I
loved cassettes when they were at that time. So I mean, they were great until CDs came along. Then
so I've got a huge CD collection. I haven't listened to any of them in a very, very long time. Well, did you rip any of them into iTunes?
Oh, always.
Yeah, I did the same.
I'm going back Napster days. You got to have a big collection.
Shh. We don't talk about Napster.
Yeah. Well, anyway, with Shazam, I think one of the coolest things that they did is
were we talking about Shazam?
We were talking about it. I got you
Some
back
time
on track
ago.
here.
Oh, good luck.
Shazam, they have an integrated feature now, so when you go and listen to a song with it and it picks it up, it'll automatically create a playlist for you in your Apple Music or iTunes. So you can go back and listen to them. So you didn't have that integration before, whereas when Shazam was on its own, it was a separate service completely. So I like that. I mean, I think it's got some great features to it now more than ever because Shazam was the de facto app. When the iPhone first came out, I mean, everybody's like, "What song is this?" and wanted to put up their phone and listen to what the song was because it was so cool at that time. And it's cool now. I mean, now with everything we ask of all of our smart devices now, it's easy peasy. But I'm glad Apple bought them. I think it's going to be it is a nice fit for what they're doing.
Well, do you think actually purchasing music will ever make a comeback, or do you think those days are in the rearview mirror?
I think it's getting close to the rearview mirror at this point. I would not be at all surprised that all of a sudden Apple stops selling music altogether, and all they do is streaming, and you can.
Well, you know how that would work. You could, if you still wanted to purchase it, instead of having like a dedicated music portal in iTunes, it would like just be an Apple Music app, and as you listen to music. If there's a song that you actually want to purchase, you say, "Hey Siri, I want to buy this song," or however they would integrate it.
Don't say that.
I know. Yeah. Oh, it's, "Hey, Apple intelligent thing."
That person.
I want to buy this song that I am listening to right now. Blah 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 blah, and it would in turn go to your Mac via the magic of iCloud. And the next time that you would log on to your Mac, a little notification pops up and says, "You've told us you want to buy, this song by Britney Spears," and you would hit the OK button, and you would have that song.
Right. Well, and again, Siri does a lot of this stuff too. It did, when you talk to your devices now, but I think Shazam's just going to be a nice complement to what Siri does, and that's what Apple's trying to do. Is they're trying to make things better with voice activation.
Yeah,
I mean, and then this was just an added bonus.
Well, I mean, the whole thing with Apple right now, and there's already some speculation on it, is whether or not they're going to bundle all of these services together into one big mega service, and not just music, and not just podcasts, and not just books and magazines, but movies and TV shows and everything else. So you'll spend, and Gaz and I talked about this a couple of weeks ago, but you'll spend however much, let's just say it's $50 a month. But for that $50 a month, you get everything that's in iTunes, everything that's in iBooks, everything that Apple has available to it through all of the partnerships that they have with all these other companies. So there's that. Let's move on to the next one.
Yeah.
Apple bans the InfoWars app from the App Store. Now, one of the last mainstream places fans of Alex Jones' InfoWar platform has shut him down. Apple has removed the InfoWar app from the App Store, saying it violated Apple's policies that, I gotta take a deep breath here, defamatory, discriminatory, or mean-spirited content, including references or commentary about religion, race, sexual orientation, gender, national, ethnic origin, and or other targeted groups, particularly if the app is likely to humiliate, intimidate, or place a targeted individual or group in harm's way. Okay, there, one big long sentence. There's no doubt, Alex Jones certainly wore his, for lack of a better term, heart on his sleeve as far as his politics goes. And there's a lot of people, including myself, that don't really like the things that someone like him says. And he has been kind of under the gun with so many different platforms starting to ban him. And remember, this doesn't mean that he's not posting content. It simply means that all of these platforms, and we're talking Facebook and Twitter, now Twitter, Apple removed his podcast links quite some time ago, and now the application itself is gone. I think one of the few places that's left is Google Play. I think it's still in the Google Play Store as of the recording of this particular podcast.
Who's on Google Play? Come on.
Well, the whole thing is I'm very, very uncomfortable with shutting down speech, whether it's
I agree with you.
Whether it's speech that is positive or speech that is negative. You could look at this podcast. I'm sure there's lots of people that would love to shut this podcast down. Probably many people that listen to it would like to shut this podcast down. But it's and this isn't a first net. Let me make this clear. This isn't a First Amendment or free speech thing, because that has nothing to do with iTunes. It has nothing to do with Twitter. It has nothing to do with Facebook or any of the other platforms that has removed Alex Jones and the InfoWar from their platforms. And let me make that very specific. Their platforms. Apple, Facebook, all of these various social media platforms that you can get links to content and all the rest of that, they aren't hosting the content. The content is hosted someplace else. They're just providing a link to it. So, all of the stuff that Alex Jones has put out is still out there. It's just you can't get to it from an application that you can get from the Apple iOS App Store, or now from Twitter or Facebook or some of the other social media groups.
I mean, that's the prominent place to listen to podcasts is Apple. I mean, let's face it. So it really hit them right at the core. So, but
it actually kind of depends, because a lot of the people that actually listen to content from Alex Jones, I get the feeling most of them probably aren't using iPhones. I don't know. Yeah. That's just the feeling that I get. And that's not to say that people who own iPhones wouldn't listen to Alex Jones or InfoWar or have inclinations toward that type of politic. I'm not going to go any further.
I'm the same way. I'm not big talking politics. It's just It's just I mean, I do go on the side of free speech is free speech. That's how it should be in this country, and but stuff he did was just
it's way over the top.
Way over the top. I mean,
but however, in regards to free speech and the First Amendment, remember that those don't apply to places where you work. It doesn't apply to social media. It doesn't apply to anything other than you cannot be prosecuted by the U.S. government or local governments for content that you produce, regardless of what it says, regardless of its intent, other than if it fails the yelling fire in a crowded theater kind of test. You can't do that. Is illegal. But as far as you want to hate on a bunch of people for whatever stupid reason that you want to hate on people, that's entirely on you. But the government can't prosecute you for it. So the fact that Twitter has removed it, that Apple has removed it, that Facebook has removed it, it's not a free speech or First Amendment issue.
Right. Don't
couch your argument against it in that way, or you just sound stupid. Yep. Okay?
Oh,
so we're going to move on.
Let's move on.
We're going to move
back into tech.
Yeah. So this is, do we have any comments on this? Let's see. Will they demand everyone accept a round earth and force that down our throats? Well, Adam, I don't think so. I think that if you want to believe in a flat earth, believe in a flat earth. I mean, all evidence to the contrary, that's fine. I don't think we have anything else to say about that.
Let's move on.
Okay, so we are. I keep saying we're going to move on, and then we don't. So here we are, moving on. Mac app Adware Doctor Blah, blah, blah.
Secrecy.
Mac app. Boy, this is a really tough one to say. Mac app Adware Doctor secretly stealing browser info. Now, there's a paid app, or was a paid app, in the Mac App Store, Adware Doctor, gone now, that was supposed to keep your Mac clean of malware and other nasties. Unfortunately, it was also apparently helping itself to your data and sending it to China. And the weird thing was, Dave, that Adware Doctor, up until the time of its removal, was the number 4 paid app and the number 1 paid utility app in the App Store.
But I mean, why did people get so scared about this stuff? It doesn't happen on a Mac as frequently as it does on a PC. Adware Doctor, I've never recommended any of that stuff. It's garbage. It's absolute garbage. Even Malware Bytes, and Malware Bytes is another app that's out there,
and that's free.
Okay, it's free, but it's
every time I've run, I have yet to find anything on any of my Macs. Actually, you know what? I take that back. There was a service, God, this was years and years ago, called Genio, that supposedly built a on your browser. Anytime you'd open up your main browser, it would have this like magazine style format of stuff that you said, oh, I want to find out about this and I want to find out about that. But apparently it was also malware. It was looking at other stuff on your system that it wasn't supposed to. And it was really, really tough to remove. Whereas services like Hazel and
I love Hazel,
Malware Bytes and things like that would dig deep into the various sections where they would drop this stuff, find it, and remove it. But ever since then, every single time I've run Malware Bytes, I have yet to find anything.
Yeah. It's just on a Mac, it's pointless. It really is. I mean, I don't run antivirus on it. I just don't run these services. If you have a problem, then you grab it and go. I mean, there's plenty of stuff out there that can check things, and it just, yeah. I can go on, but
well,
I'm glad it's gone. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, but since the advent of OS X, to my knowledge, there has not been an actual virus. And if you don't know the difference between a virus and malware, then look it up. But as far as I know, there has not been an actual virus that has affected if you're running the latest version of OS X. And maybe I'm wrong, but I haven't seen anything. Certainly malware.
I mean, there's a few things here and there in the wild, but nothing anywhere prominent as it is with Windows.
Yeah. And I think that's it for this section. So I'm going to get us out of here. What do you think?
Do it.
All right.
I'll learn from the best.
So everybody stand by, and we will be right back. I said that without going into a French accent.
Like the tinker.
I do. And welcome back, everyone, to the MyMac.com podcast. Boy, this has been a great show, Dave.
It really has.
Would you nod your head at the fact that this has been a great show? See?
Hit it.
Nodding head.
Gaz's tips.
Guys tip.
Gaz's tips.
Guys tip.
Gaz's tips.
Well, guys tip.
It's time for Gaz's tip.
Or guys tip. Now, how many times have you come home drunk and realized that you can't connect your iPhone to your local Wi-Fi network or your Mac to your local Wi-Fi network for whatever reason, and you just can't remember how to do it because you're drunk? Well, I'm here to help you. And I don't know if you'd be able to do this while drunk, but using keychain access to find Wi-Fi passwords. If you've forgotten the password to a Wi-Fi network, you can use keychain access to figure out what it is. Open the Keychain Access app and then choose System to see all the saved passwords for the Wi-Fi networks you've connected to. Select one, click on Show Password, enter your account credentials, and the info will be shown there in plain text. You can access all your saved logins and passwords in Keychain Access if needed. Yeah, and do that when you're drunk. What do you think, Dave?
Yeah, that might be tough.
Yeah, it would be. Would you nod your head at that? Yeah, you are.
Hit it. That's the end of Gaz's tips.
Guys tip while drunk. Guys tip while drunk.
Gaz's tips.
Is that the end of the tip?
Will you let me finish?
Ding, there we go, and off guy goes, but he's not drunk. I don't drink. I actually don't really drink that much.
I've been with you many times. I never did. You didn't drink.
But sometimes I do feel like I drink right now, as a matter of fact. And maybe once we're off, I've got some really, really nice bourbon that I received as a gift not long ago. It wasn't for my birthday. It was for somebody made a trip. Oh, my wife. My wife made a trip to this particular place, and they made their own bourbon there, and she had a tour of the place, and she brought me back a nice bottle of bourbon. So I will probably give myself a shot of bourbon once we're done recording here. Isn't that fascinating?
It is very fascinating.
Yeah,
don't you have a pick? You have a pick, don't you?
I do, but first, you know what I feel like? Actually, I can't find my cursor. There it is. When I have bourbon, this is what you hear in my head. That's what you hear. So, my pick, which is certainly not Adware Doctor, Rogue Amoeba's Loopback, which every single Mac podcaster should have in your tool bag, is such a great program. $99. You can also get both Loopback and Audio Hijack in a bundle for about $130, which will save you $30. Both of these, if you're a podcaster and you podcast from a Mac, you should have both Loopback, especially Loopback, and Audio Hijack. These are two fantastic programs that I would not be able to do this podcast without. And so, you know, at the end of listening to this podcast, you can blame Rogue Amoeba. It's their fault.
That's right.
Their fault. What about you there, Mr. Dave?
Yeah, I had an interesting tip I wanted to throw out there that I actually posted out on the Mac to the Futures site a while ago, but I wanted to share it with your listeners.
Cool.
I was dealing with a crazy issue with my MacBook Pro 2017. So it was pretty relatively new machine here. I was losing space on my solid-state drive. I'm like, what the heck is going on here? I have a 512 gig solid-state drive, and it was going down to 95 gigs. I'm like, I don't have anything on this machine. What is going on here? Well, I didn't remember that I'm also using Carbon Copy Cloner, which I think many of your listeners here use.
Yes.
It's a great application to clone your drive and restore it. I know you had discussion before about the debate whether it shouldn't be used. I completely am against that. I think this is a great program. Everybody should be using it. So all of a sudden, I'm looking and not realizing until actually I did a lot of research. I mean, I got it to a point where I had Apple engineers that were going to be looking at my machine to understand why this is happening. I mean, it was that insane because I couldn't figure it out. Finally, just a simple Google search, realizing that Carbon Copy Cloner had added a new feature called snapshots. And what that does is it kind
of like Time Machine almost.
Yeah, like Time Machine. It with the advent of APFS, the new file system now that's on High Sierra and higher. It takes advantage of that, so it does snapshots of your machine that freezes it in time. So you have all these snapshots. So I'm looking through on Carbon Copy Cloner. I'm seeing all this stuff. I'm like, what the heck? Why is it saving all this stuff on my solid state drive? Sure enough, that's what it was. So I deleted all the snapshots, and voila, I regained 300 gigabytes of space. Crazy. Absolutely
it is crazy.
So I mean, how to go from 96 to 317 in a matter of minutes. But that was what it was.
Learn what you have learned.
So, assuming you'll put this in the show notes, I have a link to the video, a link to the video and a screenshot of Carbon Copy Cloner where to turn it off if you don't want to use snapshots. And they actually explain why it's doing it when it's sharing. So, yeah, be on the lookout for that if you are using Carbon Copy Cloner, because you'll run out of this lead.
And I think that's the default too.
It is defaulted. Yeah, that's why I didn't know, because it was turned on. We're always upgrading programs. I'm like that all the time. I'm always upgrading stuff, and I don't really think about. I should look closer a lot of times when you upgrade programs.
Yeah, but I mean, seriously, how do you go through all the different settings, all the different preferences of every single program? I mean, really, we're at the stage now, or a lot of the applications that I have, other than things like the subscription to Microsoft Office and things along those lines, are things that we've gotten through the Mac App Store. So you get that little notification, bing, you have some kind of update. So what do? You just say, you update it, and you don't even think about it. And then the notification goes away, and you're happy. Unfortunately, or the next time you start a program, it comes and says, hey, you're on 4.1.7. You need to get 4.1.7.6. And you're like, oh, okay. So you hit click the OK button, and then the next thing you know, you're sending all your stuff to China for some odd reason. But yeah, so it's almost impossible to look at all of the different stuff that each program that gets updated. You can't keep track of it. And even if they tell you what it is, number one, you have to assume that they're not lying or, not excluding certain things that you may want to know. And number two, half the time they say, well, we fixed the thing in library/application support /this // and we changed the bit from a 1 to a 0. Wow. Okay. Well, that's obviously made all the difference in the world, changing from 1 to a 0. Yeah. So great. Thanks. Oh, you're saying I now have only 96 gigabytes of space when I had almost 320 before? Oh, no, I'm fine with that.
Well, that's why I keep things on external drives. I don't want to be taking up all the space on my main drive. So anyway, yeah, that was my tip, and just be on the lookout for it when you're using Carbon Copy.
Well, before we get off this topic, do you use any external services to back your stuff up?
Yes, I use
Backblaze. I use Backblaze.
I use iCloud, of course.
Right.
I haven't delved into Backblaze as of yet. I was using Carbonite. I stopped. It was a little pricey. But
it's like $100 a year.
Yeah. So,
but that also backs up like 7.5 terabytes of data.
Right.
For me.
So
that's a lot.
It is a lot. So I used to use Crash Plan until they got off the consumer plan. So
right.
So, but no, those are probably what I do right now is just using Dropbox. Those are probably most of the places where I don't have a ton of data that I have to back up, like photos and stuff. There's iCloud. Yeah. So
Adam says that computers are less complicated now, so Apple just takes care of us.
They do.
They do. You have a pick I see here too.
I do. There are so many apps out there.
Softorino.
I do. There's so many apps out there that download copies of YouTube videos. You can go to the website. They do it, and it's crap. They use ads. Yep. They all suck. But this is the one I just found that is absolutely awesome. I don't know if you've used this before. It's called Softorino's YouTube Converter 2. And on the fly, it downloads your video locally onto your machine. Like, boom, it's there. You have it for a local copy. Most of the time, that comes in handy when you're doing a presentation and you don't want to depend on the internet. You want to just do a presentation locally, and I want to have a local copy of it, and it's impossible to do. So you just go in there, and it actually downloads the video very simply. You can tell it what type of resolution you want on the fly, just clicking it. You can do audios. You can actually do ringtones too on this thing.
Nice.
It'll download it to your Mac, to your iPhone, to your iPod if you want, and then right to iTunes if you feel as well. And a lot of times I've done that for audio. If I want just to have an audio version of a video, or if it's a music video that they show, I can just rip it and put it in and make an audio version of it. But there's like 65 different services, including Vimeo and SoundCloud works. But if you click the more button, there's like 65 other different services on here. Some of them I never even heard of before. Jezebel.com, Deadspin.com.
Some of those may have some content of questionable content.
Yes. Yeah. So if it has a video, in most cases, like even the news sites, CNN, CBS, all those, it should work. And it's only $19.95, dirt cheap.
Yeah,
highly recommended. I think it's a great app for your Mac. It even works on Windows, surprisingly enough.
But there was something else that they made. I don't remember what it was, but it was kind of
Walter.
Yeah, that was it. Gaz and I would talk about that, and at the end of it, it'd be like Softorino. And for some reason, just the name of the company just kind of cracked me up.
It is kind of funny, but they're a great company. I mean,
they are. I think we had the CEO. I think we had the CEO on.
Did you? Okay.
One long time ago.
Great product. We got a link in the show notes how to get to it.
Yep, there will be a link.
Excellent. And then that's my pick.
And there's no new iTunes reviews for this show, Dave.
Oh no.
That makes me so sad.
I am sad.
But it's okay. Now if you do an iTunes review for the MyMac.com podcast, I'll send you something wonderful. It's called a Woody. Do you know what a Woody is, Dave?
Is a certificate of just
It is.
acknowledgement.
It's a big W, big O, big T, little I, little E. That I'll send you. All you have to do is just send me an email. I can't keep that up. All you have to send me an email after you do an iTunes review, and I will send you a Woody. As a matter of fact, have I sent you a Woody before, Dave?
You have. This is my third time on your show here.
So I sent you a Woody for being on the show before?
Yes, you did.
Okay, what you need to do is find that file and just reprint it, and that'll be
right.
another Woody, because
Fair.
they haven't changed in like 10 years. They've remained
Good for me.
pretty much the same.
I've been a pretty much a pro at this now. At this point. Just have to remember the breaks. I have to remember.
Yeah. So we're on Facebook feedback. We are still up to 200 people that lick us. We only have 196 follows, so 4 people apparently are only there for the abuse. We do have some Patreon and coffee supporters. Patreon supporters: Chris, Nick, Bob, Troy. Thank you so very, very much. And over there on the coffee, that's ko-fi.com. In both the services, if you just look up Mac Parrot, you'll find me there. We have Frank, Warren, Troy, Bob, and Yvonne. And if you want to do just like a one-time, hey, we thought this show was really great, you can do that through coffee. It's so very, very easy. And all the money goes back into helping to pay for all the crazy stuff that I do, not just with mymac.com, which Tim basically pays. He's the one that's actually paying for the bandwidth, and he's the one that uploads the audio and all the rest of that. But for all the other stuff I do, Guy's Daily Drive and the Mac to the Future live cast, that's all on me, and all the stuff that I do that's related to that. If you'd like to contact Mr. Gaz, I don't have his music. You can reach him. Actually, I need you to read Gaz's contact stuff.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Gaz is reachable at Gaz at mymac.com.
And how do you spell Gaz?
G-A-Z.
Cars.
Zebra.
Go ahead.
Gaz. And then on the Twitters, he's on Gazmaz. And on the Twitters with you, he's Guy and Gaz.
Mm-hmm. Cars.
And then if you want to send feedback to the show, feedback at mymac.com. And you also have your Skype numbers.
We do.
Is at 703-436-9501.
That's right. And how can people get a hold of you, Dave?
Again, you can reach me at In Touch with iOS.
Excellent.
InTouchWithIOS.com. And you also mentioned my off the charts horseracing.com, another podcast I do, which is not technology, but it's horse racing. It's fun. And I'm on the Twitters at DaveG65.
And you do In Touch with iOS with Melissa Davis, the Mac Mommy.
Melissa Davis, yes. She's on with the geekiest show ever, too.
Oh, yeah. She's great. I love Melissa. We were talking about her the other night. She is so great.
Yes,
She's wonderful. If you'd like to get a hold of me and say, Guy, you are just a blithering idiot, for whatever reason that you think I'm a blithering idiot, you would send that to Guy at mymac.com. You can also say I'm a blithering idiot over there on Twitter. There is a huge club of people on Twitter that say Guy is a blithering idiot on a regular basis. And it's so easy. Just look up Mac Parrot, and that will be me. And I guess at this point, I would like to say thank you to everyone who downloads and listens. That's the important bit. Downloads and listens. And in this case, watches the mymac.com podcast. It is greatly appreciated. All of you who do so. I really, really thank you for doing so. And Dave, I think that you and I here this week, that we're good enough.
Yes.
And that mostly on the Chicago end, we're smart enough. And that, doggone it, people like us.
They do.
Yeah. Now, if you could read that sentence that's right underneath there.
Where would that say?
Right under where it says silly language.
You want me to read that?
Yes, please.
I'll try. Obetensto ostentes performerados y cubitos na oficina do dentista. I see what it is. Y tan divertido como Paris.
Yes.
In other words, getting my teeth drilled and filled at the dentist office is about as much fun as it sounds.
And then there's just one more thing you've got to read right underneath that.
The Titanic hit a Galician.
No, it's underneath that.
It is?
Next
End.
page. Yeah. End.
Okay.
But you got to say it with authority. With much.
End.
Muy mucho.
End. There you go.